Welcome to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. This is just a quick update about my Kickstarter campaign. So just to recap, I'm trying to raise $12,000 for my crime action thriller screenplay called The Pinch. I already have $15,000 raised, so the total budget will be around $27,000 if I can hit this $12,000 mark going through Kickstarter. So far in Kickstarter, I've raised about $5,000, so there's still a lot of work to be done to get to the $12,000 mark. The way Kickstarter works is if you don't hit your funding goal, you don't keep any of the money. So I've got to continue to push hard and hopefully hit my goal eventually. I want to thank each and every person who has contributed over the last week. So thank you, Omar. Thank you, Jevon McCord. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Sherry Frost. Thank you, Franklin Solaris. Thank you, Eric Nimoto. Thank you, Scott Kazowinski. Thank you, Jennifer Furbach. Thank you, Chris Crowley, James Musselman, Catherine Lowry, Jean, Michael Liverpool, Lori Ashbourne, Devin McKay, Ashley Stone, Felicia, Julianne Bianchi, Claire Knopf, Art Payne, Adam Fletterman, Laura Covert, Ada Ellison, Paul Zeidman, Tom Barnett, Darren Nash, Brad Mills, Kieran O'Mullen, Rob Newton, Charles Hughes, Scott Jordan, Jack Hudkins, Joe Taylor, Alec Peters, Darren Cole, Dennis O'Flying, Larissa Clisby, Walter Sewell, Janet Hetherington, Mary Goldman, Michael Morgan, John Collins, Bruce Lucas, Pauline Hetrick, Mike Atkins, Supermercado, Demi Nikov, Richard Feynmanville, Casey O'Connor, Maxine Stanley, David Beshears, Veronica Tabers, Rick Harden, Janet Fisher, Britt McKillian, David Santo, Gary Brawl, Neil, Esther Hazy, Scannon, Suzanne Stavano, Ross Schiffman, Thomas Gatos, Hiabu, Kianta Kavi, Nathan Barnes, Sienna K, Patricia, Jason Spellman, Daniel Giorgiano, Londi Cordis, Tom Frangento, Martha Luzkak, Chris Courtney, Martin, Mark Boomer, Eric Vasello, Elizabeth Carr, Bernie Rayo, Ray Sisri, Brian O'Connor, Mark Henley, Jonathan Levy, Tad Wozniacki, Robert Cox, Jeremy Headington, Alberto Adu, and Rosewith Gerhart. I just butchered a lot of names, and I really apologize. I'm terrible with names, but I really do appreciate everyone that contributed. That's literally a list of everybody that contributed between the last update I did and today. So thank you, folks, for that. It's very, very much appreciated. I want to do the drawing now for the free email and fax blast service. Last week, I said that anyone who contributes between when the last update came out, which was last Thursday, and Sunday night would be eligible to win one of these blasts. I had originally planned to give away 2 blasts plus 2 more if I got past the 25% mark. I did get way past that 25% mark. So again, I really appreciate all the support that people are giving me. So that's 4 blasts. And as I said, I went well past the 25% mark. So I'm going to throw in an extra blast as well. So that's a total of 5 blasts that I'm going to give away. So let's go ahead and do the drawing. What I'm going to do is actually show you me doing the drawing. Hopefully this will just add a little excitement to it. So if you're just listening to the audio, this might not make a lot of sense, but I'm going to literally just show you sort of me picking some numbers from a random, there's a website out there that just will give you a random number. I'm going to pick it, and then we're going to fix that up to an actual name, and then I'm going to announce the winner. So if you're on YouTube, it'll be cool just to watch me actually pick these. If you're on audio, might not make a lot of sense. Anyways, here we go to pick the winners. So basically what I've done is I've created a spreadsheet of every single person who contributed to the Kickstarter during the time frame, that past Thursday to the Sunday night. I've put their name in, and I've tried to obscure their name. I'm not sure people would want their full names listed and shown how much they donated. So basically I've obscured it, but obviously the winners will be announced. But in this first example, you can see it's Omar. He did not put a last name in when he Kickstarted, so it's probably okay to show his name. And he contributed $20, so he gets 4 slots. So basically all the people that contributed during that time frame all the way down was 592. So there's 592 possible entries for the 5 fax blasts. And then on this other window, I've got random.org, and you can see I put in 592 minimum. So basically I'm going to generate random numbers, and then I'm going to assign, go back to this number. So if the random number result comes up as number 1, then Omar would win that first fax blast. So let's just go ahead and do this. We're going to generate a random number. The first winner is 404. So let's go down to 404. Let's see here, 404. So it looks like Janet Fisher is the winner of that first one. Wouldn't mind marking her so I can get back to that. Okay, so let's generate another random number, and 336. 336. Let's see here, 336. Supermercado. He is another winner of the blast, so let's mark him. And 155 is the third one. Let's see, 155. And Juliana Bianchi, she is a winner. Let's do number 4, 171. Looks like Juliana Bianchi has won a second blast, so she gets 2 blasts. Let's do another one, 485. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the 5th blast, and it's number 485. Let's see, and that winner is David Santo. So congratulations to those 5 people. They are going to get a blast. And what I'm going to do is just send those folks a message via the Kickstarter system. And then they can respond with their email addresses, and then we will get their blasts out. They can send all I need is a query letter, and basically we can do the blast. So if you're one of the winners, look for a message via Kickstarter for me, and congratulations to those 5 people. And again, I just want to thank everybody for contributing. It is very, very much appreciated, and I've got some great new rewards that I'm going to be offering this week as well, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to talk about those new rewards in just a moment. So I figure I'd just give a quick update on sort of my thoughts on doing this Kickstarter campaign. I want to really emphasize that these are just my thoughts at the moment. I'm only about 10 days into it, so not even halfway through the Kickstarter process. So my thoughts, my feelings may change, but as of right now, this is kind of where I'm at. And I know a lot of people will listen to this, well after the Kickstarter campaign has ended. So definitely follow up on the other updates just to kind of see how my thought process evolved. But I do want to talk about a couple things and kind of just tell people kind of where I'm at. And hopefully this is helpful to you if you're considering a Kickstarter campaign. So first, I want to talk about some of the downsides to doing a Kickstarter. Just take a moment here. I would say one of the biggest things, and I didn't fully estimate how this would feel before it started. I didn't really estimate how weird this might feel. And essentially with a Kickstarter campaign, you are basically just begging for money. And it feels weird. I got to be honest with you. You're basically sending out emails, sending out tweets, just begging for money. And I didn't really anticipate how strange this would feel. Maybe this is something I just have to get over, and maybe it's something I'll get used to as I go through this process. I don't know, but it's definitely something to consider if you're thinking about running a Kickstarter campaign, that it does feel a little bit weird. I mean, there's something strange about just basically asking people to give you money. There's also, and this kind of, is sort of part of that, there's an emotional toll to running a Kickstarter campaign. And again, before I started, I don't know that I fully understood sort of what that was. I heard people talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it now. So if you've never run one, it kind of makes sense, but until you've been through it and actually felt these feelings, it's hard to fully understand. It's also hard to quantify. In a lot of instances, it's not exactly, it's just hard to sort of sum it up and quantify it, but I'm going to give it a try. So there's definitely some emotional sort of ups and downs. It's kind of a roller coaster ride. When I first launched the campaign, after the first couple of days, I was at about $1,500, and I kind of was feeling a little bit down because I kind of had told everybody that I knew and was nowhere near, my goal. And so I was a little worried that maybe I'd already run out of steam after just a couple of days. So there's these downs, and then there's also these ups. Then all of a sudden the contributions started to pick up, and, last weekend I got a lot of contributions. So then you're up. So there's definitely sort of this emotional ups and downs. Kickstarter sends out emails every time you get a new contribution, so you can look and you can see how much was contributed by that person. Then you can can look at, how much overall towards your goal you are. And so this kind of, by having these constant reminders coming in through email, that kind of continues you on this sort of emotional roller coaster where you don't get any emails for a day, and then all of a sudden you get a bunch in a row and you kind of feel good, and then you start to feel bad when you don't get these emails. So there's an emotional ups and downs that you're going to face, and that's something to kind of consider as you're thinking about doing this. I also think that, again, this is something that I definitely heard people talk about, and I kind of just shrugged it off. And I would say it's probably not something you should shrug off. I mean, by design, a Kickstarter campaign is all about telling everybody you know, friends, family. Obviously, I have a podcast, so I'm telling everybody I know in the podcast. I mean, that is how it works by design, as you try and spread word. So if you fail, it's a kind of a very public humiliation. And I heard some other people mention this beforehand, but I kind of was like, yeah, it's, I'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work, I'll just, try something else or figure something else out. So I didn't really go into it thinking that would be at all an issue, but it kind of feels like it is. Again, I think those emotional ups and downs kind of contribute to it, but it does feel a little strange and sort of nerve-wracking as I'm going through this process and thinking that potentially is a public humiliation. Because as I said, I've pretty much told everybody I know. So everybody I know is going to know that I failed at this thing if it doesn't work out. So that takes its toll on you. And I feel like too, and I want to really emphasize this, it's like I've been a screenwriter for many years. Rejection, anybody that's any success as a screenwriter gets rejected, countless times. So I don't feel like I have a thin skin. I feel like actually I have a pretty thick skin. But this definitely, this sort of public humiliation that potentially I'm going to go through is, it does weigh on me a little bit. And so I would definitely consider that. I will throw out that maybe this public humiliation is a good thing. I mean, it does keep me motivated. I'm looking at that, the time is ticking by, my 30 days is ticking by, and I'm nowhere near actually hitting my goal. So it keeps me motivated. It keeps me doing this podcast, this Kickstarter update podcast. It keeps me thinking about how can I get more, people to come to my Kickstarter page? How can I get more people to contribute? So maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's a good thing. The public humiliation or the potential for being public humiliated is a good thing because it keeps you motivated and keeps you working. One of the things Kickstarter does, and again, they make this very clear up front, is that the pages never go away. So anytime someone Googles, Ashley Scott Myers, it's quite likely that my Kickstarter page will go up, will show up in the Google search results. So, this is sort of a part of your life going forward. So again, it just kind of weighs a lot more heavily on me than I thought it was. And again, maybe it's a good thing because maybe it keeps you moving. At this point too, selling your screenplay is a business. It's a big part of my business life as well. So I am worried, doubly worried, not just, being humiliated in front of my friends and family, but also it does take its toll. That I'm also worried that it will reflect badly on selling your screenplay as a business, sort of tarnish the good name of selling your screenplay if I fail. So it's really, when you do a Kickstarter campaign, you really are putting yourself out there. So be prepared for that. And again, I think I have a pretty tough skin, but it's just very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable position to be in, kind of doing this very public thing and potentially failing at it. So consider that carefully if that's something you want to go through. The other thing, and as I said, this is kind of a similar, it's definitely a part of what I just mentioned, but it's, I'd say, less emotional and more sort of practical. Again, selling a screenplay is a business for me. It's a big part of my life. And I can definitely tell that there is, a cost to doing it to my selling your screenplay audience. So this is also something to consider. Who is your audience, and are you going to burn that audience a little bit? And just to dig into some of the actual details, I have an email list. I've talked about this before. I mean, obviously I have a podcast, and that gets pushed out to iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube and all that. And then I do a weekly email to people saying, hey, the new podcast episode is valuable. And it's a good chance, as you're listening to this, you got the update through email and then you clicked over to listen to this because you got that email. So I have a big email list of screenwriters, and I can tell that people are unsubscribing to my list, and that number seems a little higher than usual. You always get people that sign up for your list. I offer my free guide, my free Selling Your Screenplay guide, how to sell your screenplay in 5 weeks guide, if you sign up for my email list. So there are definitely people that sign up and then they cancel or they unsubscribe after they get that guide, and that's totally fine. There's no obligations to stay on, but I can definitely tell that the unsubscribes are up a little bit more than usual, it seems to me, by doing this Kickstarter campaign. And I can go through, I use a service called Aweber, and they do have some statistics. So I can go and look at the statistics and see if, once I'm done, I can kind of see what the actual cost of that was. But that's a real physical cost to me and my business. I sent out a bunch of emails last weekend, really trying to promote that special reward that I was doing. And as I said, it did seem like there was an unusually high number of unsubscribes to it. I spend a lot of time and a lot of money building this email list. I consider it probably the most valuable asset I have, business asset that I have at Selling Your Screenplay. So I spend money, I spend time doing it. So when people unsubscribe, that actually has like a cost. I could probably back that into an actual dollar amount. So again, I would say keep that in mind. And the same is going to be true to your friends and your family as well. There's going to be a certain number of people that just get sick of sick of hearing about your Kickstarter campaign, and they're going to be turned off by it. Again, it goes back to sort of this feeling weird that you're basically begging for money. I think there's going to be some people that are turned off by that, and with Selling Your Screenplay, they're going to unsubscribe. They maybe stop listening to my podcast. So there's definitely a cost there, and it's hard to quantify at times, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. I would be curious to hear from some people if they are considering unsubscribing from my email list, if they are get sick of hearing my Kickstarter updates. I would be curious to hear from you. Again, you don't have to be rude, but just send me an email and kind of tell me your thoughts, because I'd like to keep my finger sort of on the pulse of this. I mean, ultimately, this is kind of an experiment for me. If this is a complete flop, then I probably would never do another one. But I'm going to get into some of the more details and sort of the upside of this. And so I'd be curious to hear from anyone if you're getting sick of my Kickstarter updates. So another thing that I didn't necessarily fully anticipate before I started the Kickstarter campaign was there's definitely a sort of opportunity cost with doing the Kickstarter campaign. It's a lot of work. You got to keep promoting it, keep pushing it out there, keep talking about it with your audience, with your friends, with your family. So that's a cost. I could be working on other projects. I could be doing other things with Selling Your Screenplay, and instead I'm doing them with the Kickstarter. So that's a physical, cost of your time. You only have so much time in the day. So that's something to keep in mind. There's also a sort of a opportunity cost with my creative juices. I feel like in any given day, I only have so much creativity, and, a lot of my time, whether it be falling asleep, just coming up with ideas, or I typically go for a run before my lunch, and I do I try and do some creative work on that. When I'm running, for some reason, just running, I feel like I'm creative during that time, the rhythm of the running. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like actually going for a run, I can come up with some good ideas. And, typically I'm thinking about the screenplay that I'm writing. So that's my creative focus. But obviously when I'm running the Kickstarter campaign, some of my creativity is focused on that. So again, it's a kind of an opportunity cost that I didn't necessarily anticipate. I'm trying to come up with new rewards. Again, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I'm trying to come up with new creative ways to promote this Kickstarter page. So that's something that definitely is a cost as well. So those are sort of the downsides as I see them right now. Again, I'll definitely do an update once this thing is ended, probably maybe wait even a month and kind of go back over these bullet points and see how I feel about them then, because I'm curious to see how I feel about them then. But now I want to talk about some of the upsides, because right now there's been some great upsides to running this Kickstarter campaign. And again, some of them sort of surprise me. They're not necessarily things that I anticipated. So let me dig into those for a minute. people have been very, very generous. And I just mentioned, hey, if you're getting sick of hearing my Kickstarter campaign, or you're unsubscribing from my podcast and email list, shoot me an email to tell me why you're doing this or how you're feeling about it. For the most part, not even for the most part, every single email that I've gotten from people has been, very gracious. People have been very kind with their emails and given me a lot of words of encouragement. I haven't so far gotten a single email from someone saying they're sick of hearing me talk about my Kickstarter campaign. So that's been very encouraging. A lot of people have emailed me and said, hey, you've helped me with your podcast, with your blog. I really appreciate all you've done for me. So I'm going to contribute a few bucks to your Kickstarter campaign. So that's just been incredibly rewarding. Lots of people have sent me these really just nice, encouraging emails, and it's very, very, very much appreciated. And without getting too sappy, it kind of does warm the cockles of my heart, and it just makes me feel like I'm doing some good work. Not just forget about the Kickstarter, but it makes me feel like I'm doing some good work with the podcast. I mean, I think as a creative person, as someone who went into writing, I feel like, and I think most people listen to this podcast, you're sort of with me on this. You want to feel like you're doing something valuable. You want to feel like your scripts have value and get reached a lot of people, and you're doing work that's important and people appreciate. And, I don't know that any of my screenplays have ever actually achieved that, but, the podcast, it seems to have. And so I want to thank everybody who sent me these very, very kind, generous emails and thanking me for the work. Because I do feel like with the podcast, I'm actually doing some good work and really helping people. And that's the biggest thing with this Kickstarter campaign is I've never interacted. I do occasionally get emails like this just out of the blue. Sometimes someone will email, hey, I just listened to your podcast. Thanks for doing it. It's really doing good. So I do get those emails, but I've never gotten so many in a short period of time. And then people are also contributing and giving back. So it's a very nice, this has been incredibly rewarding in that sense. And even if the Kickstarter campaign fails, I think that's been a great experience just interfacing. I've never interacted with my community quite like I have during these first 10 days of the Kickstarter campaign. So again, I just really do appreciate that. Thank you to everyone. Another thing, and this is kind of very similar in that same sort of mold, I've had a lot of people, and I'm going to say a lot, I would say maybe five or six people have emailed me, and they have very specific technical film production skills that they're offering. I had an actor, a guy that does credits, title sequences, a guy that can do some special effects. I've had a bunch of people email me with these kinds of, very specific film production skills. You just email me and say, hey, I've been listening to your podcast. I really like what you're doing. I'd be happy to help out. And, for the most part, they're offering to work for free or next to free. And so that's been incredibly rewarding. And, this is a micro budget film. And the way these films get produced is a lot of people, like the vast majority of people that work on this film, when the total budget is $27,000, there's not a lot of money to pay people. Most of that's going to really go towards the hard costs, maybe camera rentals, maybe, food for the crew, the casting crew, maybe some locations. There's going to be some physical hard costs, doing copies. I mean, once you get your film finished, there's a whole bunch of like post-production costs, just physical post-production costs, entering film festivals, making submissions. There's hard costs, and that $27,000 is going to get eaten up pretty quickly with the hard costs. So most of the people are going to be working for free, and a lot of these people are that are contacting me are just saying, hey, I like what you're doing. I'd be happy to work on your project for no money or next to no money. So that's very much appreciated. And that's just been a great thing. And I think even if this Kickstarter campaign fails, I can probably still go back to those people and say, listen, I've got to figure something out as far as raising the money, but would you still be willing to help out on the film? And I bet most of them will. So I think that's a great asset. And it surprises me a little bit because in August, when I first started talking about this Kickstarter campaign, I started talking about shooting the Kickstarter teaser trailer. And at that point, I actually said on the podcast, hey, I'm going to shoot this teaser trailer. If anybody has some skills and wants to help me with that, give me, drop me an email. And I really didn't get too many emails of people offering to help. So maybe just running the Kickstarter campaign, people seeing that it's real, seeing that I've actually raised a little bit of money, it just makes the project feel more real. And so that inspires them to contact me and offer to help. And, I'm sure some of these things will not work out. Some of the people will get paid gigs or they'll get scheduled or whatever, and they won't all be able to and ultimately work on the project. But there's people offering, and as I said, that's been very, very rewarding. Just meeting people, networking with people, interacting with people, and that's, even if the Kickstarter campaign fails, I've got that, and so that's a great thing. And I would say overall, as I said, just interacting with my community of listeners and meeting some of these people that want to help in the film, that's been the biggest upside so far, without a doubt. And I would say overall, there's no question that the upside definitely outweighs the downside. Maybe if this thing does just completely flop, I'll feel a little bit differently. But right now, I'm feeling very positive about it. And it seems like it's definitely worth doing. And I'm very, very glad that I did it. As I said, obviously, if I don't hit my goal, my feelings may radically change. But hopefully I'll hit my goal, and hopefully and hopefully my feelings won't change. But right now, those are sort of the upsides and the downsides that I see. So I want to talk now about some technical, statistics, sort of logistical things with running a Kickstarter campaign. Again, I'm only 10 days into it, so these things could change, but I would definitely be curious to hear from some other people that have run Kickstarter campaigns. And I'm just going to kind of share as much information as I have at this point, and you can take it for what it is. If you ever run your own Kickstarter campaign, you can compare it to my numbers, and then you can come back. And I'd appreciate too, even if it's in a year down the road, if you're listening to this in a year, and you run a Kickstarter campaign, compare your numbers to my numbers, and drop me an email and just see how they compare. Because I don't really know. As I said, this is my first Kickstarter campaign, so I don't really know if I'm doing well or not well. It just would be interesting to hear from some other people. So the first thing I want to talk about is I have not seen very many contributions from random people on Kickstarter. Most of the people that I've that have contributed to my campaign have been people that friends, family, and then people that I listen to my podcast or are on my email list. And almost exclusively, Kickstarter has some statistics in their dashboard, which I don't fully, frankly, understand. But as best I can tell, of the $5,000 that I've raised, only $200 of it is come from random people. And this is important to consider, because one of the reasons I went on Kickstarter and chose that as a platform was because I read somewhere that, people were finding that up to 25% of their total contributions would come from random people who just like to support cool projects. Now, after kind of being on Kickstarter for over a week, looking at what projects are doing well, I have a sneaking suspicion that 25% applies more to physical products. There's a ton of people raising, $100,000, $200,000 or more on Kickstarter, and they're basically creating like prototypes of sort of very cool niche products. And I can see if someone bumps into that product and they think it's cool, they might be willing to contribute to it because they just think it's a cool product. With a film, it's a little bit different of a it's just a little bit different of a mindset. So the bottom line is I haven't seen very many contributions from random people. As I said, it's hard to tell through the Kickstarter platform, but I have not seen them. Most of the contributions I'm getting, as I said, they're names that I recognize, people I've met or talked to through email via Selling Your Screenplay, family members, friends, and then people will email me, hey, I just contributed. So I like most of the people that have contributed, I can kind of get a sense, and I can also tell, my emails go out, and all of a sudden I'll get a bunch of contributions. So the contributions come in very much when I push, the information. Again, I don't get that many just random contributions from people that I don't seem to know. So that is something to consider. And to me, it begs the question of why use Kickstarter as a platform at all. They take 5% of your money that you collect. In addition, there's 3 to 5%, and I don't know why they give you a range, but for some reason they say it's 3 to 5% in credit card processing fees. So, the better part of 10% of your money that you raise on Kickstarter is going to go right off the top to Kickstarter and the credit card processing companies. And, they got to make a living too, and they have their own business model. So I don't begrudge them the money, but it kind of made me wonder, why not just set this up on my own blog? I mean, I could have very easily created a page on my blog and, put a PayPal now, donate now through PayPal, and not have to pay the 5%. I think PayPal, I've never done a donation, so I'm not entirely sure what the percentage is, but I know when I sell things through Selling Your Screenplay via PayPal, and I think it's like less than 3%, 2.9, 2.6, I don't know, but it's definitely less than 3% or around 3% for that. So that would be the only payment. So if I just set this up on my own site, you know, I could create the video, I could have created the video, I could have created the awards, I could have created basically a blog post, and then just had people donate directly to my PayPal account. I would have saved myself at least 5%, and it sounds like over 5%. So I will say that I think it feels more legitimate going through Kickstarter. Kickstarter tracks the money, so maybe that is something. I think, you know, if you're just like giving money to me, it just does feel a little bit shady. I think people understand that Kickstarter is an all or nothing platform. If you don't raise all your money, the people don't kick in the money they get. They don't ever get charged for that. So I think there's some help there, but I don't know. It makes me wonder, is Kickstarter really worth that 5 to 10%? I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence about that, but that's sort of how I'm thinking right now, and it's definitely something to consider. I have seen my rankings rise a bit in the various sections of Kickstarter as I got, especially over this past weekend, I got a lot of contributions over the weekend, and I could tell I was going up. For instance, if you look in film and video, the film and video section, and then you drill into like what's popular, I think I got as high as like maybe 5 or 6 under the what's popular category. So I was seeing my project rise up, and when I started it, I also looked in there and I did not see it at all. It was buried. You know, again, it begs the question, if you're not really getting any donations from random people, I'm not sure that it really matters that you're getting more visibility on the Kickstarter platform. But it is cool just to see yourself rise up. There's also a button on many of the Kickstarter campaigns that say like Kickstarter pick, or, you know, projects we like or something like that. But it's like a little blue button that someone at Kickstarter has flagged this project as something that they think is cool. And they highlight those a lot more, even if some of them are not getting very many contributions. And in fact, when you go to film and video at the top, it seems to change every day, but they really highlight one project like right at the top of the page. And it's hard for me to imagine that they're not picking up at least some contributions from random people, because they have so much visibility on the Kickstarter platform. So that's something I would spend a little more time trying to pursue, is getting you know, selected as a Kickstarter, you know, a project we love Kickstarter flag on your project. I think it's the new and noteworthy category. I think I looked at that at one point, and every single project in the new and noteworthy category was one of these Kickstarter, you know, project we like, with the little blue icon on it. So in order to appear in there, I did a little Google search on that as how do you get that, and it seems it's as easy as just sending an email to Kickstarter support and telling them why you think your project is cool and why they should have it as a Kickstarter pick. So I might try and figure that out a little bit more. That might be a tip if you're thinking of a Kickstarter. It might be worth spending a little bit of time trying to get listed as a Kickstarter pick, because I don't know, maybe then you would actually get some of these people that are just bumping into your campaign and donating. I want to talk a little bit about the stats of the video. And I don't know, maybe people find this incredibly boring, but I just find it interesting. And again, I'd be really curious to hear what other people have done on Kickstarter. I could probably Google search it. In fact, I probably should do that. But right now, my video has about 800 views on Kickstarter, and it's about 50% of the people have gotten all the way through the video. And that number has held pretty steady from the time that I started. When I started the Kickstarter campaign, I think after the first day I had, let's just say, around 100 views. And it was right around 50% had made it all the way through the video as well. As far as I can tell, Kickstarter doesn't give you any stats like how many people made it through half the video or how many people made it through a quarter of the video. So the bottom line is I've had 800 views, and 400 of those people that have looked at the video have gotten all the way to the end of the video. Again, that seems like decent numbers to me. I specifically made my video very, very short. It's only 2 minutes. It's a minute of teaser trailer, and then it's a minute of me basically pitching the project. So it's only 2 minutes total, and you definitely want to keep your Kickstarter video short, and that's what everybody was telling me. So I think the longer it gets, the more you would see that number drop off, where people were not making it to the end. Right now, I have over 100 contributors, which is great. Again, I really appreciate everyone who has contributed. My average contribution is around $48, so that's a tough way to get to $12,000. I definitely think this is something to keep in mind as well. You know, I went and I looked, I just started clicking through it. I didn't do this a lot, but I looked at, like, let's say 5 other projects that were funded, or close to being funded. And I just did some math. You know, you can look at how much they raised and how many contributors. And so you can just get a, an average of how much was the average contribution. And I did not see any that were as low as $48 as an average contribution. And that's where I am. So, you know, I think it's good in the sense that I have a lot of people that are supporting this, you know, compared to how much money I've raised. But it also makes it difficult to actually hit my goal of $12,000. Most of the other campaigns that I looked at, they were more like $75 to $100 was the average contribution. And so, again, I think this is something to consider, is coming up with rewards that are high price, are expensive, because it's a lot easier to get to whatever your goal is when you're at an average contribution of $100 versus $48. And, you know, along those same lines, you know, almost half of the $5,000 that I've raised has actually come from me giving away the story consultant credential. And I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, but I'm giving away a story consultant credit on the film. And so far I've given 7. I'm only going to offer 10, but I've given away 7 of those. So that's a large percentage of my money. And again, this goes back to getting a higher priced reward. Getting more higher priced rewards really gets you closer. You need a lot less contributors. So that's something to keep in mind, is kind of trying to offer cool rewards and raise that average contribution. Right now, $20. The biggest single, like, pool of contributors is at the $20 level. And, you know, if you just do the math on that, how many contributors I would need to get to $12,000, which is my Kickstarter goal, you would need an awful lot. So you want to think about that in terms of your rewards and how many people, realistically, how many people you can get to contribute. So that's something to think about. I will definitely say, too, the rewards seem to help a lot. Last week, when I offered the email and fax blast drawing, which I just you know, talked about a minute ago, that really did spur a lot of contributions. So I think if you're going to run a Kickstarter campaign, really do spend some time on thinking up some cool and valuable rewards for your audience, things that, you know, the audience potentially might even pay for. Because I think, you know, people, they are generous and they are nice, but at the end of the day, you know, it's if you can give them something that actually has valuable, then it's a win-win for everyone. They get something cool and you get, you know, some money for your project. So definitely think through what you're going to potentially give as your rewards. So in that spirit, I've cooked up a bunch of new rewards for this coming week. I've got a new promotion for this weekend. So between now and midnight on Sunday, which is January 31st, 2016, in case you're listening to this much later on or in the future, between now and Sunday night at midnight, I'm going to be offering up 2 online screenwriting classes that I taught a couple of years ago. And I'm going to put those, everybody who contributes will get access to these. Again, contributions start at just $5. So hopefully you'll contribute more. But if you only contribute $5, that's totally cool. Anyone who contributes will get access to these 2 classes that I taught and recorded. You're going to get access to the recordings. The first class is online class number 1, choosing a marketable concept. How to avoid the single biggest mistake made by screenwriters. And that class is basically me going through and talking about how you can make sure your concept is marketable. And this really is the single biggest mistake I see from new screenwriters is, you know, they will come up with what they think is a cool idea. They will spend, you know, months, if not years, writing this script. And at the end of the day, it has no chance of ever selling because the concept is not marketable. I mean, you can really help your chances of selling your script if the concept is marketable, and making sure you do that as early in the process as possible is essential, and it can really save a lot of time. You won't waste time, you know. Instead of wasting 4 or 5, 6 months writing a script, you can just move on to a new concept. This concept's not marketable, toss it out, come up with a new concept. And even if you spend a month just coming up with concepts, or 2 months just coming up with concepts, that can really save you a lot of headache down the road. Because if your concept isn't marketable, you're never going to sell the script. So I basically go through this whole process and sort of try and lay out some ways that you can actually enhance your chances and figure out if your concept is marketable. So that's the first class. The second class is online class number 2, before you begin to write your screenplay. And in this class, I go through the whole process of everything you need to do before you start writing, outlining, specifically outlining and all the different steps that I take, coming up with a log line, all the steps that I take before I actually start writing. And again, this is something I see a lot of new writers make a mistake. They want to dive in and start actually writing. And you can really save yourself a lot of headache if you take some time and don't just start writing, and really prepare, do a lot of preparation before you start writing. I actually feel like one of my strengths as a writer is in outlining and structuring screenplays, and so I really take you through my entire process of what I do before I start writing, and I think that could be potentially helpful to a lot of screenwriters as well. So I will link to the class descriptions. Again, these are classes that are in SYS Select. So if you're already a member of SYS Select, you actually have access to these classes. They're classes that I sold in the past. I recorded them, and then you're going to get a link to the recorded class. I will link to the class descriptions in the show notes. Again, these are classes that I sold at one time through SYS Select. So I wrote up nice little landing pages for each class, which really goes into some detail. So if you just want to learn a little bit more about these classes, no problem. I will link to them in the show notes, and you can read over that and then decide if this is something you think might be beneficial to you. And again, everyone who contributes between now and Sunday, even at the $5 or $20 level, will get access to these classes. So, and again, sort of in the spirit of what I was talking about, trying to offer bigger rewards and bigger packages, I am going to basically take a bunch of Selling Your Screenplay Select services and products and bundle them and offer a huge discount. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give away 1-year subscription to SYS Select, which normally costs $199. So you'll get all the SYS Select leads for the entire year. You'll also have access to all the classes that we've done. These 2 classes I just mentioned are in that in the forum, the SYS Select forum. I think there's 10 or 12 classes, but there's a whole bunch: how to pitch, whole bunch of online classes that are useful to screenwriters, cover a variety of topics. So if you get this reward, you'll be a SYS Select member, and these are some of the benefits of SYS Select. And then you'll also be able to pitch. So you'll get the leads that I send out to SYS Select members, the paid screenwriting leads that I send out. You'll get the 10 or 12 classes that are in the SYS Select forum, and you'll also get to pitch your script in the monthly SYS Select newsletter that goes out to producers. And these are all things that I talk about and promote on my podcast. So hopefully you're kind of familiar with them. I will again link to SYS Select in the show notes, so you can learn more about that. Again, a 1-year membership to SYS Select costs $199. I'm also going to give 3 email and fax blasts to my large list of industry contacts. These email and fax blasts cost $159 each. So I'm going to give 3 of them for $407. So the total value of that would be $477. Again, this is how I've sold and optioned lots of scripts over the last few years. I talk about it often on my podcast as well, so hopefully you're familiar with it. But it goes out. It's basically an email and a fax that goes out to 5,000. I think it's over 5,000 producers at this point, and basically pitching your query letter. And there's a whole process to that. Once you are in the SYS Select forum, I'm going to help you with your logline. I'm going to help you with your query letter, and then we are going to blast your query letter out to my list of producers, 5,000 plus producers. So if you take the $199, which is the 1-year SYS Select subscription, and you add that to the $477, which is the 3 email and fax blasts, the total value of this package is $676 worth of SYS Select services. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer a reward through the Kickstarter campaign. So basically, if you contribute $500 to the Kickstarter campaign, you will get this $676 worth of SYS Select services. So it's an almost a savings of nearly $200 $500 on these services. This is really what I recommend for screenwriters. I think screenwriters should be aggressively marketing their material. And this package is going to get you all kinds of stuff. You know, I probably send out 3 or 4 email and fax blasts to my list myself as a screenwriter. So I think that's a good combination. 3 blasts in a year as you're a member, your 1-year subscription to SYS Select. So I think it's a great package. I rarely discount my products, if ever. I don't know that I really ever discount my products. So you're never going to see a deal like this. So if you're on the fence or you've been listening to the podcast and you've heard about some of my services and you're thinking, hey, gee, this might be something I would be interested in, you know, I'm going to basically offer this package at a deep discount. As I said, it's $676 worth of SYS Select services for only $500. So it can be a great, you know, win-win for both of us. You know, you help me out by supporting my Kickstarter campaign, and then the flip side is you get access to all of these great SYS Select services. I'm only going to be offering 10 of these. Obviously, I don't want to just inundate my email and fax blast list with tons of blasts. So I'm only going to offer 10 of these. Once they're gone, they're gone. I'm not going to be offering any more. So if you're interested in this reward, please, you know, contribute quickly and take advantage of it. On Kickstarter, you will see the reward, and when you go to contribute, you will choose this reward level. It will clearly be marked as the SYS Select package. Choose that, and then Kickstarter will mark it off too. It'll say, you know, when it starts, there'll be 10 available, and then as people collect on these rewards, that number will go down 10 all the way down to 0. So I'm not going to offer any more of these. 10 will be the most. So if you're interested in that, definitely check out the Kickstarter page. Because I'm going to put that up by the time you're listening to this podcast. That will be available on my Kickstarter page. As I mentioned just a moment ago, too, the story consultant credit is just about sold out. There, as I'm recording this, there are only 3 of these left. This is another reward. I started out with 10. With 10 of these rewards available. 7 of them have been claimed, so there's only 3 left. So if you want to get a story consultant credit on this movie, The Pinch, please go check it out now. At this point, I mean, we're only 10 days into it, and 7 have been collected, so I'm pretty sure these will sell out, and they'll probably sell out in the next couple of days. Here's basically how this is going to work. You contribute $300 to my Kickstarter campaign, and then you're going to read my screenplay and give me notes on it, and then I'm going to take your notes, and I'm going to take another pass on this script. So, you know, your notes will be very helpful and appreciated. And any notes that I think are good and will work with my script, I'm quite likely to take. So you're going to actually earn your story consultant credit. And once the movie is finished, this story consultant credit will be a part of the finished film, which means it'll appear in the film's credits, and most importantly, it'll appear on the IMDb page. So this is a great way if you're a writer looking to get a credit, a writing credit. Getting a story consultant credit might kind of get you on the board and get you into the IMDb system. So that's definitely something that screenwriters seem interested in. And as I said, there's only 3 left. So if you're interested in that, definitely go and check that out now, because they will be gone shortly. So that's basically it. That's my update. As I said, we've got the, I'm going to run this special reward between now and midnight on Sunday, January 31st. Anyone who contributes gets access to these 2 SYS Select classes that I taught and recorded, and then I've also got the new reward of getting all these SYS Select services, bundling that up. And as I said, there's only 3 of these story consultant credits left. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, definitely go and check out my Kickstarter page. I've got a regularly scheduled podcast episode publishing this Monday. It's an interview with Thunder 11, who wrote the Sharknado movies. Fascinating interview. He's really interesting, great guy, and had a great story to share with us. So keep an eye out for that podcast episode. Again, that's going to publish this Monday. I think that's February 1st. Anyways, thanks for checking out my Kickstarter campaign, and thanks for listening to this update.